Wake up, Jacob. Israelite Prepper here. Just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit. I was trying to, give you guys a little bit of content, and as you know, I try to have my own style, and I don't want to rehash the same old topics, the same old type of things. Obviously, we want to focus on the Bible. We want to focus on prepping and come out of her, my people, and things like that, biblical marriage, things like that. But I don't want to give you guys stale messages. I want to give you guys some real good content, if you will. I want to get the content that you want to hear. So this one here is going to just be, ask Pastor Nobody, Volume 1, where I'm just going to answer some questions. I can either answer them live while we're shooting, or I can answer them if you send an email, foibiblestudies@inbox.com, or when I go back later and I look at the comment section or whatever, you guys have some questions, and then on another video, I will answer those questions to the best of my ability. So, again, just put your questions down below. Just put your questions down below, and I'll answer them. I'll either answer them here or I'll answer on the next one. It just depends. But I do have a few questions that were asked to me. I have a text question here real quick, and it says, let me go to it here real quick. Okay. This text question, it says, if you see your parents doing wrong, do you correct them or leave it alone? I know you're supposed to honor your parents, but what happens when they go too far? Okay, so shalom, shalom. Rosie K, shalom. Good to see you guys. And shalom, tough guy. It went away real quick. Shalom. Thank you guys for joining me. I just want to answer that question. The question is, can you correct your parents, if they're wrong, in light of the commandment saying, honor thy mother and father? Shalom, shalom. Adhere, see. Shalom. Shalom, Lenny Christian. Shalom. This is a good question. I want to answer that. Now, how I want to answer that, it really depends. Shalom, shalom, humble homestead. I'm so glad you guys joined me on that. The question is, should you correct your parents? Obviously, you're an adult and you have, your parents. If they are doing wrong, I'm going to answer it like this. It's situational. That's a situational thing. And here's the reason why. Because the question is, or we have to ask ourselves, is it our place? So it really depends on the situation, right? If it has not a whole lot to do with you, if it causes you to overstep your bounds or anything like that, it causes you to dishonor them and overstepping your bounds, then no, we don't correct them in that sense. But hold on, there are a few caveats. I'll give you an example. You have your kids. We raise our kids a certain way, and let's just say, for example, we raise them according to the dietary law, meaning no pork, shrimp, catfish, things like that, right? And your child goes to visit your parents, right? And they don't really keep the dietary law. They're okay with pork, shrimp, catfish, so on and so forth, right? And then they try to give your kid, unclean foods. You have every right, and it is not overstepping your bounds to correct them in that situation. Say, hey, listen, mom, dad, we have some dietary restrictions. I need you to respect that. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You can correct them. If you're, there's some other thing that has to do, with your kids. If they are coming at you or disrespecting you or something like that, no, you don't want to get back in their face, so to speak. You don't want to, really come to blows or, call them all kinds of names or anything like that. I mean, sometimes the most honorable thing you can do is walk away. Since you're an adult and hopefully you don't live with them. I know some of us, things happen, life happens and stuff like that. But let's say, you don't live with them. You can leave. You're free to leave, that sort of thing. I'll give you one example that happened in my life. And I think I used this example before. I was seeing someone. This is before I was in the truth and everything. So I guess you can call dating or whatever. Shalom, shalom, malak. Shalom, fam. I guess you could say dating. This is before I was in the truth. I mean, I was in my early 20s. And I was dating a young woman. And I guess my mom didn't too much care for her. I can't say my mom hated her. My mom really didn't hate anyone. But she kept making these remarks, right? These disrespectful remarks and stuff like that. I had to stand up to my mom and say, hey, mom, listen, this is the person I choose to be with, and I'm going to need you to respect her, or I'm not going to be coming around. For as long as I'm with her, I'm not going to be coming around. Okay. And my mom respected it. You know, she stopped making those remarks. Obviously, she cared about our relationship, okay, hers and mine, our relationship more than she cared about criticizing who I was dating at the time. So, yeah, she had gone too far. So it really just depends on it just depends on the situation, right? So you can't just, you know, for instance, going back to the dietary law, okay? You see your parents, they're not keeping the dietary law. I mean, you could say something, but you can't really correct them. You don't make their groceries if you're not paying their bills. I mean, obviously, if you're buying them their food, you can just not buy them that type of food. But if you're not paying their bills, you don't live with them, there's nothing you can do. You can't force them to keep that law, if that makes sense. I hope that answers that question on that. I got one other question that came to me. Someone asked, do we have to keep all the laws, the whole 613 laws? That question was asked before. All right, so that, it depends on how you look at that, right? Now, at the outset, let me just answer the question. Yes, we have to keep the law, okay? Let me just answer it flat out. But let me qualify that a little bit, right? It depends on how you look at it. See, the laws are broken up different ways. Okay, the longest breakdown of it is like 613. Not everybody subscribes to that. They don't say, well, it's not quite 613. Some of them are the same laws and just kind of elaborates and things like that. And of course, it's law, statutes, and judgments and things like that. You have to keep all the ones that pertains to you. If we look at how all the laws are broken up, okay, there's a number of different ways that it is broken up. But if we look at them, how they're broken up, they're categorized. If you want the long view, you can say, oh, it's 613. Or you can kind of break that down and you say, okay, well, there are agricultural laws, there are Levitical laws, there are laws that pertain to the king, there are male and female laws like circumcision or the time of the month, okay? I did say agricultural laws, things like that. There's ceremonial laws. And then there's some laws for the common person. There are laws that take place in Jerusalem. You know, it's just broken down different ways, right? So there's no one, you know, messianics. A lot of people say, oh, well, you know, you're cherry picking and things like that. There's no cherry picking if it doesn't have anything to do with me. For instance, I don't have a time of separation. I don't go on my flower, okay? I'm not a female. So any laws that has to do with a female doesn't pertain to me. I don't have to, quote unquote, keep that law. I'm never gonna have a boy and I have to be, you know, I'm unclean for 7 days. I'm never gonna have a little girl and I'm unclean for 30 days or what have you. That has nothing to do with me, right? And the opposite is true for a female. She didn't have to circumcise herself on the 8th day. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't. Peace, Sister Mary Wall. Thank you for joining. Listen. So when someone says, you know, do you have to keep all 613? I can say, well, no, because not all 613 has to do with you, right? So you can eliminate some things. You can say, okay, I can't keep any of the Levitical laws because I'm not a Levite. We don't have a Levitical priesthood. There are some laws that have to do with the temple. If you're here in America, there is no temple. We're not there, right? So you can't keep it. It's impossible. So any ones that you cannot keep or doesn't apply to you, you don't have to really worry about. And that's not just, you know, circumventing or anything like that. It's just impossible for you to keep, right? So you have to look at it like that. And then so let's just break it down. Now let's go the other route, because a lot of people, when you say, oh, well, we have to keep the law, they try to overwhelm you, right? They say, oh, there's 613. There's no possible way you can keep them all. You can't do that. You don't. All 613 doesn't even have to do with you. So you can just tell them, I mean, they don't all apply to me anyway, okay? They don't all apply to me. There are some sacrificial laws. Now, obviously, if you are Messianic, for the most part, you don't worry about that because you believe in the Messiah. Yeshua HaMashiach or Jesus Christ, whichever, I don't quibble over the names and things like that. But you don't worry about most of those laws there, right? You can still offer sacrifices, the praise of your lips and things like that. You can still do that. So if you're Messianic, you don't have to worry about that because your sacrifice is the Messiah. Now, if you're Torah or Tanakh only, then you go to the scripture. What was that scripture? That scripture was in Israel will go without a priest and out a ephod and without. You guys know, you have to look that up for me. So they say, so when you ask someone who's Tanakh only, they may say, well, we don't have to do it because scripture says, we're going to go a long time without a priest, without an ephod, without a sacrifice and all that stuff. So it depends on how you look at it. But again, does all of them apply to you? That's all you have to ask yourself. Do they all apply to me? And is it possible? So going down the road of is it possible? I asked you, if we just start in the 10 Commandments, right? Is it possible for you not to bear false witness against your neighbor? That's the question. Is it possible? See, it's possible for you to not bear false witness, right? Is it possible for you not to commit murder? Is it possible for you not to steal? Is it possible for you not to covet? Is it possible for you to honor thy mother and father, right? Now, obviously, if your mother and father is no longer with you, like my parents, they are in the grave. So, I mean, I can honor their memory, things like that, but I cannot physically honor them. They're not with me. And is it possible that you honor? So they say, and some people keep thinking that it's an active honor, right? So some people say, well, I don't get along with my mom and my dad and all that, right? It can also be a passive honor, right? You show them some respect. You're not around. You say, you know what? I'm not going to say anything bad about them. I'm not going to dishonor their name or their legacy or anything like that. I'm going to keep my distance for right now because every time I'm around, we end up fighting. We have a big disagreement. So just to keep the peace, I'm gonna let them do their thing. I'm gonna do my thing. That's, in a way, that's honoring them, right? Or if you can make amends, make amends. That's completely up to you. And now you have to do with things that the Most High wants us to do, right? Is it possible that you can worship and honor Him on the seventh day rather than the first day? I mean, is it physically possible for you to do that? For most of us, it's possible, right? I know some people say, well, I got to work Saturday, and that you work that out between you and the Most High. But what I'm asking is it possible, right? So, and that's just the 10. Is it possible not to use His name in vain? Okay, which is, your behavior and the things that you do, right? It's not just a bunch of ONG, okay? I mean, I got a lesson on that on the Fountain of Israel channel. But you have to ask yourself, is it possible? Is it possible for you to worship Him and Him only, be active in it, right? Or if you go towards the dietary law, can you be a little bit more vigilant in what you eat, right? Can you start reading labels? Can you avoid pork? Can you avoid shellfish? Things like that. I mean, it's going to take you a lot of label reading and stuff, but you have to ask yourself, is it possible? So when someone says, do we have to keep all the laws? My simple short answer is you have to keep the ones that pertain to you. You have to keep the ones that are possible for you to keep. So I wanted to, answer those two questions. I was trying to think if there's a few other questions before. I think I had another one. They said, well, how do we know that Saturday is the Sabbath day? How do we know that Saturday is the seventh day? I did a lesson on that too, and I think history kind of helps us with that. Now, when we look at the definition of Saturday, and we look up, there's a number of things you can do. But if you go to a couple of encyclopedias, if you look up Saturday in different languages, a Sabbaton, things like that. You look at it in the Greek and the Hebrew and other languages and stuff like that, you're going to see that their word for Saturday, it means Sabbath, things like that. So you have that in the translation. You can look at history when the Greeks conquered Jerusalem, when the Romans conquered Jerusalem and stuff, and they say they conquered them and they had an advantage on the day of Saturn, and we know where we get the word Saturday, which is Saturn day. And they said that they would do things on the day of Saturn. They would attack them. Address the honoring of one's parents. Really please you. Okay, Sister Rosie. Okay, no problem. The honoring of parents. No problem. Yeah, it was a question someone had sent me too. But please do me a favor. Put your, if you have any other questions or whatever, put them in the comment section below. I'll get back to it on another video, so I can just kind of answer some questions. I want to answer them. I want to answer them quick and succinct, but I want to answer them thoroughly too. I want to give you an actual answer. So back to the Sabbath. There's a lot of ways you can look at it, because I actually had some people that say, well, how do you know it's the Sabbath, right? So again, back when the Greeks and the Romans, when they conquered Jerusalem, when they overtook Israel, they would in the books they would say that they had advantage on the day of Saturn, or they would attack on the day of Saturn, where the Israelites would not put up any resistance, right? So we have, on the day of Saturday. So that was that's a huge clue right there. I mean, it's really an open shut thing right there. And be careful those who's going to dismiss the Sabbath, because the Sabbath is a sign between him and his people, those who believe. It is a sign. He said it in a couple of places in the Old Testament, or the Tanakh. He said it in a couple of places that the Sabbath is a sign between him and his people. So some people dismiss it when they don't want to make the change, when they don't want to switch it around and say, you know what, maybe I ought to do the 7th day rather than the first day of the week. They want to dismiss it. They want to well, I can worship any day, every day. Hey, you're right. But you can't make any day the Sabbath. You cannot replace the 7th day. If you want to worship on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, or all the, I know these days, Sunday, sun god, Monday, moon day, Thursday, Thor's day, and all that. I get that. If you want to worship on those days, that's fine. You cannot replace the 7th day. You cannot replace it, okay? That's just how it is. But how we know is through definition, translation, and history, that we know that Saturday, the day we call Saturday, is the Sabbath. Because we know. I mean, we can look at the Sunday law that Constantine put in place in 325. There's a lot of resources out there for us to know. So those are 3 questions. Just to kind of recap a little bit, and I'm gonna get on out of here, guys. Let you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Is how do we honor our mother and father, or correct them if they go too far? And then the other one, do we have to keep all the laws? And then the third question was, how do we know that the day which we call, or the world calls Saturday, is the 7th day? Okay, so those are the 3 questions there. Hey, I don't mind answering some of these questions for you guys. And like I said, I just have a slightly different format. There's a lot of great guys out there who, teach and kind of interact. I want to interact with you guys. I know there's people like Pastor Joe Fox at Viking Preparedness. Shalom and salute to you, sir. Pastor Joe Fox. Some people follow Pastor Dial over at Straightway. Some people following Yeshua over there on the Rock. There's a number of people that share a lot of information, right? They share a lot of information, a lot of biblical information, a lot of community information, a lot of prepping information, a lot of biblical marriage information. Whatever questions that you guys have, let me know. I want to put this content out for you guys, something that's of value to you guys, something that you're actually interested in. So fill up that comment section, send the video over to friends, share it, like, comment, subscribe. I want to hear from you, and you. And this is Israelite Prepper in the first volume of Ask Pastor Nobody. So until next time, I appreciate you guys joining me. Shalom.